ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. Come on, baby,
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week. Yes, the weekend is here. 3 men in a box, Matt Grissom, Nick Hatcoat, and of course, Quentin Mills here in spirit, still out on assignment, hopes to get back next week. Hey guys, I'm game if you're game. I know Elijah's game. Maybe next week we'll try 4 men in a box, so keep your eyes and ears open for that. We'll see what we can do there. But first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsor and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play, download the app. It's free. Viva Tequila Seltzer, CT Bets, the team, the family, second to none. The East Coast is cuckoo for coconut. Go try one. And of course, Terry Smith, Atlanta Steaks and Seafood. Go introduce yourself to him and follow him on Facebook. While you're there, head on over to atlantasteaksandseafood.com and place an order today, and you could be grilling as early as Sunday or Monday. So without further ado, let's bring in both gentlemen, Mr. Matt Grissom and Nick Hatcoat. What's up, gents?
Hello, Jeffrey.
Morning, Jeff.
It's hard to believe we only got this weekend and two other weekends left. The college football season is officially over. In come the potato bowl, the potato chip bowl, the toilet bowl, and then of course we'll have the final 12, which everyone's going bonkers. How can the Georgia team who beat Texas be outside looking in? It's going to play itself out. You know, back in the day, guys, when I had hair and it wasn't gray, if you win 11-1 and had an amazing season, you got a handshake and an attaboy. Great season. See you next year, because you had to go undefeated. But don't get upset, because we have a new system. The Final Four. Make the Final Four, which allowed you 1 loss, win 2 games, and be the champ. And then there were still people bitching, yelling, and screaming. We got the system now. We're going to have 12 teams. Well, there's going to be at least 1 or 2 SEC teams outside looking in, crying, breaking down strength of schedule, EPA, TPA, and whatever vowels you want to throw at us. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, I think LSU, you saw them play their way out of it. I think there is a possibility they could backdoor themselves into the SEC tournament, but it would take a miracle at this point. So, yeah, unfortunately, the good thing for college football fans is that we do get the 12-team playoff. I'm wondering now, though, when you've hit that 3-loss mark on your season, how many teams just kind of shut down? Because it put even more emphasis on who really cares about any of the other bowl games if you're not in that 12-team playoff. Like, you know, for a team like Vanderbilt, it may, you know, be cool for them to play in a New Year's Six bowl. But outside of that, I mean, I doubt Brian Kelly and LSU are going to be pounding their chest to go play in the I don't know, not the Liberty Bowl. What's the one down in Orlando, Nick? That SEC Big Ten.
The Gator Bowl.
The Gator Bowl?
The Gator Bowl. Like, who cares?
The Mayo Bowl now, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think coming into the season, one of my biggest things to look at were would coaches kind of let off the gas a little bit to conserve some of their players. We kind of saw it with Nico Iamaleava last week, which it looks like he's going to be fine. It's kind of odd that line moved. We'll get into that game here in a little bit. But right after the game, Josh Heupel said that he only came out for the second half as a precautionary thing. I didn't really think much of it. And then I think Chris Felica broke the story on On3 the other day about him being out due to concussion protocol. So I don't know, but I think all in all, the season has shaped up pretty well for, I think, the original playoff teams that we all thought would be there, give or take a couple of surprises.
Matt brought up a point, and I'm going to follow up on it. This time of year, when it was just a 4-team race, we talk about the style points and teams outside looking in. Hey, I don't care. We're going to beat you by 50 if we can. We're going to just step on your throat. Now with 12 teams really solidified in the middle. Not that they're going to, just pull the starters and have the second, third, and fourth string, but that big favorites, Nick, are you a little leery now? Let's say a team's number 4 in the country and they're favored by 29. They're going to get in to get the win and then try not to get injured.
Yeah, this is actually going to come to fruition this week. And it makes me nervous because I jumped on Oregon minus 14 on, I believe it was either Sunday night or Monday morning, and put in our Discord, thought that line was going to move. And then halfway through this week, Dane Lanning has already said that his kind of guys that are important to their offense and defense are going to be on a snap count. So it's going to be kind of like an NBA like rest. Like you talk about, like Jordan James, they said might only play the first half no matter what the score is. A couple offensive linemen that are going to start but are kind of dinged up are going to probably only play the first half. Or so it's like teams like that, like we're going to find out if like how much they really care, because Oregon can afford a loss. They're in the Big Ten championship already. Doesn't matter if they lose. So that's kind of, that is a little bit worrisome from that standpoint. But yeah, I'm kind of with Matt though. Like I love this 12-team playoff because right now we're talking, like, think how many games would matter if we were still in the 14. Like we'd be talking teams basically 3 through 6 or 3 through 8 are the only ones left that it matters for. Now we're talking teams literally through the top 20 in the country. There's so many more games. We're calling elimination games and all that stuff. So I love it. But yeah, let's find out some of these teams, how much these games really mean to them moving forward. Ohio State's another one, like don't care about blowing out. Like who they have Northwestern this week, 28.5-point spread. Who cares? I think they're just going to try to get out of there healthy. So yeah, it's going to be a mix of let's see what happens with this being the first year of this 12-teamer.
And that Ohio State team, for instance, plays Indiana next week, so a perfect peekaboo look ahead. Matt, my spidey senses were up a handful of weeks ago. I know you remember this real well. When Tennessee came to Arkansas, you were heading out to the game. And I told you not only grab the points, I said sprinkle a little beer and pizza money, our good friend Kelly Stewart would say. And not only did they cover, they won outright. Nick, you nailed it. Here I'm looking at this game here, and I'm looking at the spread, and I'm seeing Camp Randall 7:30 at night. Here comes the mighty the Ducks. I mean the high octane offense. Dylan Gabriel, one of the Heisman favorites, and that line smelt to holy hell to me. My spidey senses are the same right now, Matt. I believe it or not, I got the Ducks on upset alert this week.
Yeah, that worries me. As somebody that's got an Oregon futures ticket to win it all, I don't think this is the time that Dan Lanning can afford to let off the gas. Yeah, if you've got a 3 or 4 touchdown lead, maybe going into the third or fourth quarter, sure, take out the starters. But I think if Oregon just plays their game, they're gonna win. But it does worry me. I mean, going on the road is tough. Traveling halfway across the country is tough. Big night game with jump around playing colder. I looked at the weather because I thought that may be an aspect of it. It's about the same going from Eugene to Madison. So I don't think that'll be much of an adjustment. But yeah, Oregon kind of gets off to a quick start. It may be a little bit slower of a start against, I think Wisconsin has the number 4 ranked first quarter defense in points allowed. So, yeah, may be a slow start for the Ducks.
Nick, you talk about big Notre Dame fan, of course. Got Virginia this week, but not that there's a look ahead next week. A potential undefeated matchup against Army. You remember, everyone remembers what you did to Navy. This game, it won't be at MetLife. It will be, of course, at Yankee Stadium. Any worrisome that we're looking at a little past this Virginia team, or Notre Dame will take care of business here?
I believe they'll take care of business. This is it's just Virginia's been kind of, I think they've exceeded expectations this year. Calandria, though, is so up and down and turnover. Notre Dame is just taking advantage of. You look at all the quarterbacks they face this year that are turnover prone, they make sure to make them pay for it. I think that's going to be the case. Notre Dame is still, you mentioned style points. They're one of those teams that's just on a tear right now with style points and just blowing out everybody. And everybody's going to say, yeah, it was Florida State last week. Florida State's worst loss on the year, surprisingly, I was surprised, when I looked it up, was only 26 prior to last week. And then Notre Dame beat them 52-3. It was just a whole different level. And looking forward to Army, I don't think so. This is one of those where maybe other teams would be because it's a triple option. It's kind of a different style offense. But as I mentioned before the Navy game when I was on here, they play Navy and Army every single year. They know exactly what they're doing going into it. There's not much prep. So no, stylistically, it is a bad matchup for Virginia. So no, I'm feeling pretty confident in Notre Dame this week. Not touching the spread. I've said it before. I hate I don't bet Notre Dame games too much, just way too much personal issues going on there. So I stay away, but yeah, I feel comfortable about them just winning outright.
Matt, you got your Super Bowl this weekend. Last week we hit a couple chords, unintentional, of course. And of course, I'm talking about the Arkansas Razorbacks playing Texas this week. Opened up at 15, down to 12 and a half. It looks like a lot of people I've talked to have faith in the Arkansas Razorbacks to cover this game. My spidey senses aren't up for that upset like they were against Tennessee. Give us the temperature in Fayetteville and on your Razorbacks.
Well, I'll be there once again. This is just the second game of the year that I'll have been to. And once again, it's against a team in orange that is ranked in the top 5. We'll see if the result stays the same. I've been stone cold betting on or against the Razorbacks the last 3 weeks. The only thing I like in this one is Arkansas +7 and the hook for the first half. I really liked Texas -13.5 when it opened up. I thought it was too short. I figured it would be 16 or 17. But again, going through the week, it's like that meme of, ready to get excited, and then halfway through the game, it's over. I try to get excited about this team, but I also feel like Sam Pittman's got one foot out the door waiting on this hip surgery. I know Jaquinda Jackson, Taylon Green are both going to play, but Taylon hasn't finished a game that I can recall since he got hurt in the Tennessee game. It worries me. We've got too many injuries. It's easy to chalk it up to, we don't have the NIL. We heard Sam Pittman talking about Lane Kiffin's offensive line and defensive line, and he's like, yeah, it's what NIL gets you. It's time to stop making excuses. You've been here 4 years, 5 years. This is a make or break game. And unfortunately for a bunch of Razorback fans, myself included, I really don't want us to win, because if we win, then I feel like we've for sure locked up Pittman for another year. Now, how terrible is that I have to say that? I don't want my team to win. I hope it's a good game. Don't win.
Florida gave the return to Billy Napier. Before we get into the two headliner games, we've already talked, of course, about Oregon, Wisconsin for a little here. I wanted to, I was real quiet the start of the year. Quarterback for LSU, Mr. Nussmeier, and then I start talking him up, and he's really, whether it was the A&M game or last week against Alabama. I mean, Jalen Milroe was Jalen Milroe, of course. Nussmeier looks like he's starting to regress a little. LSU, Brian Kelly, Mr. 9-3, as they like to say. Thoughts on LSU, Florida this week, Nick? I mean, Quentin, I know, is here in spirit here. Any feel on that game?
It's a complete stay away from me. Until I know the status of DJ Lagway for sure, I'm not touching this one. Numbers kind of point to Florida a bit, just because they're at home, kind of a letdown. Like LSU, like Matt said earlier, they're kind of out of the playoff contention. They needed that win against Alabama last weekend, didn't get it. So who shows up is kind of a situation here. Florida still seems to be playing hard. I know they got blown out against Texas last week, but that was one of those just situations. That was one of my best bets on the show. That's why I said take Texas minus 21. That thing was over in the first half. But yeah, matchup wise, I'm surprised this number is kind of stuck around, which is also a reason I'm staying off of it. So until I know Lagway's status, I'm staying away. If he plays, this could be an overlook rather than a side, with the number being low in the 50s. So for me, this is a stay away, and just kind of see like I know they said Napier's safe. The word, like, did anybody else find that wording in the he's safe? Like that wording in the letter was very kind of cryptic. And there's still people saying like he's safe for how long? Like until the season's over or until like through next year. So we'll kind of see. I still think he's kind of coaching for his job here. So it's a complete stay away from me. Because also if Lagway does start, do we know he's going to play the full game? And then we get that Yale transfer in again, and then LSU probably blows the door off of him. So I have no idea. It's a complete stay away from me.
And it looks like a perfect bounce back spot. I've said all week here, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if I am the DC for LSU and last year Jalen Milroe torched me for 4 touchdowns, if Alabama rolls like they did, I can guarantee you this one thing, Coach. Jalen Milroe isn't going to toast me here. And what does he do? 4 more touchdowns and toast me again. Brian Kelly's going to be looking at him and say, hey, you better fix up that resume because you're not going to be next to me next year. Matt, between the hedges, the game of the week, Georgia, Tennessee, it's a playoff game. Every game now is a playoff game for Georgia. They got 2 losses now. They're outside looking in. We know if they sheet, they'll be in. This was one of the top 2 or 3 teams, obviously, pre-flop. That line has bounced around. Is Nico in? Is Nico out? Thoughts between the hedges, Georgia and Tennessee on Saturday?
Yeah, this is the biggest game, in my opinion, of the weekend. It's going to tell us a lot. The website has Georgia only a 3.7 point favorite here. But go back to who do you trust? Josh Heupel in Tennessee have looked okay. They have not looked great. Carson Beck has looked terrible. It's still Kirby Smart. They're getting back home after getting embarrassed last week. I feel like Georgia gets right here. Tennessee has worried me, especially if Nico is hobbled. But I like the under in this one. I think more than the spread, 48 and a half, whatever you get it at. I don't see Georgia being able to put up just a ton of points because I don't trust Carson Beck. But I also don't think Tennessee scores a lot either against this Georgia defense. So I would lean Georgia minus 9.5. That's still a big number. Maybe look at a first half, but Georgia minus 9.5, but the under I feel like is the better play.
Nick. Not enough credit, I think. Last year, way too much credit, and I'm talking about Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. They come in first 5 weeks with everywhere you turn, there's an Aflac commercial with him and Saban. There's Coach Prime every which way but loose. Not a lot of talk about this year's team. They now control their own destiny. Now Coach Prime talking about, him and Shador as a package deal for next year in the NFL. And oh, by the way, I will also be following Travis Hunter on where he goes. 9.5 point favorites against Utah here. A crazy wild game, Utah BYU last week. Thoughts on the Buffs against Utah this week?
Yeah, this has already jumped up to 11.5 now. So this has exploded a bit. Yeah, Colorado's a spot here or nothing. Can't trust Utah again. They're having to go back. Lost our third string quarterback, went out last week against BYU. Now they're back to Isaiah Wilson again, who we saw was not, I think, hit the best game. When he started, the most points they scored was 13. So it's Colorado or nothing. I haven't played it yet, but I probably am going to be on the Colorado side in one way or another. Utah defense, at some point, they have to just get frustrated with this offense. This is also a 10 a.m. start locally in Colorado, which is super strange. And you mentioned Shedeur, you mentioned Travis Hunter. This is still, Coach Prime wants both these guys in New York for the ceremony. I think they're going to try to make a statement here. Utah's Super Bowl was last week with that Civil War rivalry against BYU. Terrible way to lose that one. So they have to be frustrated. I don't think this is a bounce back type of frustration. I think it's more of what else can we do? And they're just mad. So I think it's more of Colorado runs away with it, knowing what's in the future for them.
Before we get to a commercial break in your selections, I want to talk about one more game. I want both of you guys' thoughts. It's a lot of pros versus Joes in this game. Undefeated BYU. You talked about, Nick, how that game ended. Playing Kansas this week, and I know all the sharps are on the Kansas side. This is a team that has broken a lot of hearts this year, and they just I've been on the wrong side every which way, whether it's a team total, whether it's a first half. I haven't been able to be on the right side very often of Kansas this year. I do know this: if I am playing, I am going to take Kansas. But thoughts on Kansas BYU, Matt?
I've heard it all week. BYU undefeated in one-score games. Kansas, I think, is 1-5 or something in one-score games. So you feel like it's going to flip. But you remember that TCU team a couple years ago? They were the same. They just made it happen. They would win games that you would not think, okay, they should lose this one, but they'd still figure out a way to win. And I feel like that says something about a team. This scares me. I get why sharps are on Kansas. BYU just driving down the field to win at the end of the game. I could see that happening too. So I think it all depends on the number you get it at. If you can get Kansas plus 3, 3.5, yes. 2, 1.5, that's getting a little too close. But I'm curious to see what Nick has to say, because I think you faded Iowa State against Kansas, who was also undefeated, I think, when they lost to Kansas. So
I love that comparison, Matt, with TCU, because I think you're spot on there.
Tim Murray, we talk just every week about it, and he kept fading him. He was like, yeah, I don't know. They just keep costing me money. And I feel like that's what people are doing with this BYU team.
Nick, thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I got BYU minus 2.5. I think this is another matchup situation. BYU has not had trouble against scoring against defenses anywhere over the 70s. And Kansas defense, I believe, is ranked 96 in the country right now in expected yards per play. So I think I think this is a BYU Provo at night situation. We talked about it last week. Utah, we talked about that one. Utah at night. Provo's the same way. We saw what they did against Kansas State when they had a 10:15 Eastern kickoff, just exploded and blew them out. I don't think this is a blowout because Kansas's offense. We've finally seen Jalen Daniels. Beginning of the year, this was supposed to be a Heisman candidate, and now he finally looks like it. Their offense has been great. So coming up after the kind of little break we're about to take, I will give my best bet for this game. But I'm also on the side of BYU minus 2.5. I already played it.
Elijah, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, Nick, coming off at 3-0 last week, will give us his selections for the weekend.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop. Come on, baby, higher. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot.
The stage is yours.
All right, just jumping straight back into it. BYU Kansas over 54.5 is my best play in that game. I mentioned it. Kansas's offense is finally clicking like we thought it would at the beginning of the year. Fast track at BYU at 9. I think BYU here has a chance to put up 40 on their own. Total being at 54.5. Absolutely love it. Probably my top play of the week. So I'm on that one. Also, Matt mentioned earlier, I got Tennessee, Georgia under 49.5. Whether Nico plays or not, I think this stays under. If Nico doesn't play, then it's going to go way under. I think this one's already moved. There's some books that have this down at 46.5, 47. I think it's playable to 45.5 or better. Wouldn't touch it below that. So I got under 49.5. And then another favorite one of mine, SMU team total over 35.5 at home against BC. I think BC is just, I think this is one of theirs. We saw Castellanos, don't know really what's going on in the locker room. He's announced he's in the transfer portal, being replaced this week. Expect some turnovers with the new quarterback from BC. And you mentioned style points. Like SMU, even though like they're where they're at, they're still fighting for points. Kevin Jennings has been great ever since he got renamed the starter. 35.5, I think, here is too low for a team that is at home against a reeling BC who just hasn't been as good defensively as everybody thought. So, yeah, those are my best bets. And like I said, coming off a 3-0 week, looking to stay hot.
And I like where your eyes are here. If people remember watching here, and we got standing room only right now here on Twitter, BC hosted SMU in a bowl game last year at Fenway Park, and that number got steamed. I think SMU closed like -11 or some stupid number, and BC beat them there. So good little revenge spot. I was at the BC Syracuse game. I saw Coach O'Brien walk right by me. He wasn't happy. Something was going on before. This was 2 hours before kickoff, and then of course pulls Castellanos. And in today's world, these athletes can't be shunned or put into a corner. I'm leaving, thanks. So it is what it is there. I don't know if he's lost the locker room again. That square peg round hole, one game away from a bowl bid, just like my Nebraska team, who's 9-point underdogs against USC, will lose by 50 this week. But anyways, I vented there. Quick commercial, and then Matt's picks.
All right, we touched on it earlier. I am on Georgia -9.5, but I like that under a little bit more. I just think the Bulldogs, this is a make or break. This is your season right here. I feel like Kirby Smart's the better coach, and Carson Beck's got to be better. I mean, I don't think you can be any worse than what he was. And then staying in that 9.5-point spread, I'm laying it with Colorado. I think the Buffs are legit. I think they're going to keep putting up style points, even if they kind of play around in the first half of the game. They typically pull away and score points late. So I like the Buffs to get it done against Utah. And then Florida +4.5 against LSU. I talked about it earlier. I think LSU's season may be done. I don't really know what they have left in the tank. Now you've got DJ Lagway, assuming he plays, which it looks like he will. They can run the football, and LSU struggles to stop the run. I feel like if they can force Nussmeier to throw some interceptions, have some turnovers, I feel like Florida is the right spot here. And then Arkansas +7.5 for the first half. We saw in the Tennessee game, if Arkansas is going to stand a chance to pull the upset like we did against Tennessee, it's got to start early. And I feel like that's a good marker of going into the half. If we're within a touchdown, maybe you live bet it, take the second half spread, but you'll know early, because we knew against LSU and Ole Miss, if they're not pulling that upset, it's over. Just start live betting the opposite way. But I do think Arkansas probably starts with the ball, which is going to help the scripted routes. I feel like Bobby Petrino is going to have some stuff dialed up for this Texas defense, who really hadn't been that tested. So we'll see. We kind of know that Arkansas falls apart in the second half anyways. See Oklahoma State. But I feel like this is the best way to attack this if you want to get involved in this early 11 a.m. game that I'll be at. And then one more I threw in. I like the first quarter under 10.5, Oregon, Wisconsin. I kind of teased it earlier. Wisconsin has shut out their last 5 opponents. That's Penn State, Iowa, Purdue, Rutgers, and Northeastern, actually 6. No, that's 5. 0 points allowed in the first quarter. I think Oregon may get a touchdown, but under 10.5, I really like this one to stay under.
Nick, we always end this segment right here. Where can they find you?
Yeah, in Halfcoat 413 on X or Twitter. In Halfcoat on Instagram. I post a lot of things on there as well. Those are probably the 2 best. Also, I mentioned I put some plays in our Discord. So our NCAA Insiders Discord, put some plays in there on Monday that some lines that would move. Great example was the Tennessee Georgia under 49.5, which is now 46.5. So great place to kind of get those early bets when I play them earlier in the week before I do this show on Fridays and before we do our own NCAA Insider show on Friday as well.
Matt?
Follow us at Grissom on X, NCAA Insiders, and then collegefootballinsiders.com. Parker's got all of his projections up right now, and pulled some notes of the midweek games. I think right now he's 6-2 ATS. If you looked at the projection and bet whichever side it favors. So it's a great resource over there. A lot of cool stuff.
Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. Matt, enjoy yourself at Fayetteville. Make sure you guys are following both Nick and Matt on X. Follow Matt on his timeline. If the Razorbacks start to get pummeled, he'll be there live. You'll see his timeline. In-game live. Hopefully.
Because when the wheels fall off, boy, they don't just fall off. They drive off a damn cliff, and you can see it coming from a mile away. I've seen a lot of it.
Guys, have a great weekend. Elijah, take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Adam Trigger talking some college hoops. We'll be right back.
Jared, hey, we're going to need you to tone it down with the Summer Friday thing, okay?
What are you talking about?
Well, for one, it's not summer anymore.
Oh, really?
Coconut. Also, who is this?
I'm the caddy.
Oh, he's my intern.
Sorry, intern. I'm his intern.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
No golfing in the office, okay? Summer Fridays are over. You can keep the Hawaiian shirt, but the rest of this stuff, all right? Are you grilling?
Oh, yeah. Did you want a burger or a hot dog?
No, grilling in the office.
It's a good point. We should take this outside.
No, that don't. You put that right back down.
Yo, it's all in the hips.
Oh, dude, come on, we gotta go. Let's go.
Well, we go from college football to the hardwood college basketball, and this gentleman here travels the land, or should I say the East Coast. He travels far away to catch some of these games. We're already in week 2 of a long season. Let's bring him in, the one and only Mr. Adam Trigger.
How's it going, Jeff? No, I'll go everywhere. It's just so my strategy with the whole thing is like earlier in the season, it's just that there's less big like home games for teams. So it's just easier for me to go like hit the smaller spots in the East Coast because I feel like they get the same crowd in November a lot of times as they do in like January or February. And so then I'll try to, like, if I'm going to take the time to go someplace farther away, I try to do it during like conference play when you get the full experience, right? Like, so I'll save I think I'm going to be in Arizona at one point this year. I'm going to be in Florida. And then I'm not sure. I think potentially Texas, and, usually on a whim, I'll go somewhere else. So we'll get to all of them at some point.
We're in week 2 of a long season. A lot of the marquee teams like to play a handful of the locals, cut them a nice little check just to get a feel how deep your bench is, to get a feel of the certain rotations. Obviously, I'm talking about one of them, my UConn team here, 3-0. The feeling out process here. Again, I'm not here to talk about them, But thoughts early? Have you seen any of the UConn going for the three-peat? You seen anything that you liked, you didn't like?
I really don't know what to make of the first 3 games. Like, yes, they've won. Yes, they've covered. I watched most of the Lemoyne game. Like, I don't know what you can really draw from like UConn watching them play Sacred Heart, New Hampshire, Lemoyne. Like, they're winning games by 35 or 40. We know they're 10 or 11 deep. There's not a ton of drop off when their bench guys come in. I'd be interested to see if that holds true once they start playing, even reasonable competition, Jeff. Like, I get it. Like, the schedule's made in advance and stuff. But, I mean, these are what I consider low majors, right? Sacred Heart, an NEC school now in the MAC, New Hampshire from the America East, Lemoyne from the NEC. And these are not teams that are even close to the best teams in their conference. So, again, I just don't know what you gain from watching that from a UConn standpoint. It's just, that they're winning games by what I expect. It's like they're coming right near the number. The numbers have been accurate. It's just UConn gets a point or two over the number in each game. So the good news about that, Jeff, is we're going to have a chance to go against UConn at a very inflated number once they play a decent team, and that's what I'll be waiting to do.
Yeah, and I think in December they start those tournaments, and they got a couple games in Madison Square Garden. They got a gauntlet coming up in December. On what's today? Friday. On Tuesday, we got to see 2 headliner of matchups here, and for one, I was watching the Michigan State-Kansas game, and some things have just never changed. Michigan State could not throw the ball in the ocean if they were on the boat in the middle of the Atlantic, and they kept launching threes. Finally, Izzo calls a timeout and wanted to choke someone there. Same old there. And then the nightcap, of course, if you only know one person in college hoop this year, it's Duke and it's Cooper Flagg. Hats off to Mr. Pope and Kentucky, not only covering that game, winning that game.
Yeah, I'm far less interested in the major big-time teams early in the season, Jeff. The reason is this, like, the NCAA over the last couple of years has really devalued November and December in a lot of cases for these big-time top teams. What I mean by that is they're not holding these games against the top premier schools. The November, December losses do not get held against those top schools like they used to. So it allows coaches who now have a lot of new players on their team, right? That didn't used to be the case. It didn't used to be the case for Coach K at Duke to have like a brand new roster, or for, Calipari always did, but like a lot of these teams had some continuity. Now they don't. So you're getting into November and December, and there's a lot of experimenting going on. And I just don't really want to bet on it. I'd rather just kind of follow it from afar. There will be a time to bet on those teams later down the road. The teams that really, like, these November, December games that are really important for are the VCUs, the Daytons, the Boise States, New Mexico's, teams that are in those leagues that are like a step down, where they're not the low majors and they're not going to have to like win their conference tournament to get in, but like they might be on the fence where the A10 might get 3 instead of 2. The Mountain West might get 4 instead of 3. Those are the teams that I think you're going to see play just balls out in November and December because they have no other choice. Come March, they're going to leave Boise State out, or they're going to leave out St. Louis or VCU if they don't win one of those games. Just food for thought when you're looking at, especially coming into big time MTE couple weeks that we've got coming up. Those are the teams that I'd be more willing to back in these like neutral court sort of made for TV games.
Before we break down the 2 games that you'd like to break down today, there's a big slate, and I know this, okay, tonight. I know the whole world, if you go on to social media right now, the whole world is on the Crimson Tide. Purdue opened up 1.5-point favorites. The Crimson Tide been steamed to 2.5 as much there. Arizona, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Marquette, Maryland, Florida State, SMU, Butler. You just talked about it, but the whole world sees these premier games, and what do, Adam? They run to the window.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there's not like, matchups that can be broken down and stuff, but it's like, you just have to understand that there's a lot of experimenting going on. And I think, it's just it's tough, man. It's November, it's transfer portal, new guys on new rosters. There's other spots to target, in my opinion, that are just more profitable.
Well, let's start out with the first game you'd like to break down, Ohio and Memphis.
Yeah, so interesting matchup here and a couple of interesting things going on. So I saw this open last night at like 14. Most places, I think there might have even been a 14.5 out there. And just right off the bat, Ohio's a team I'm very high on. So I did play Ohio plus 14 overnight. I think you can still probably get that. This is a client play for me over at Wager Talk. I think 13s are still out there. But they haven't covered yet this year. They're 0-3 against the spread. That's the Bobcats, that is. But this is the team I think is going to win the MAC. And so I've been looking for a good spot to bet them, and I chose here. So a couple things that are going on with the number, the market, where it's at. Like, I think if both of these teams, prior to the season, I would have made the number 13.5. Okay. But that was when Tyreek Smith was still on the Memphis roster. He's left the team. So he's not going to play. He's left the team. He's not there. But Sharif Mitchell did not play in the most recent game for Ohio. Now, that's important, but I would make the number 14 without him, right? Like, I think if you take Smith off of Memphis, Mitchell off of Ohio, I think the number is like 13 or 14. I think he probably plays tonight. So I want to make it clear. I'm handicapping this, and I'm fine with it if he doesn't play. If he does play, I think the number is more like 11.5 or 12. So, like, in my opinion, my scenario for Ohio here can only improve. I have no issues going against Penny Hardaway. I think he's a fantastic talent accumulator. I think it's also a reason that Memphis, you can find good spots to bet against them, especially early in the season. Jeff, I think Penny, since he's been there, has done an awesome job at accumulating talent. I don't think he's the best in-game coach. Don't think he's the best X's and O's guy. Last 32 games as a double-digit favorite, he's 10-22 against the spread. And I do think the market just gives him a bump because of the talent that's on his roster. But Ohio's got some talent too. I mean, it's in the context of the MAC. We talked about a lot of these smaller conferences prior to the season on this show. We never got to touch on the MAC, but Ohio was my pick to win the MAC, and I still think that they're far and away the best team in this league this year. A lot of people have them priced sort of like Toledo, Akron, Kent State, Ohio are always kind of grouped together. I think Ohio is a cut above those teams this year, and I don't think they get the name recognition they used to, Jeff, because the last few years they've been just a notch below those teams, right? Akron has had some really, really good teams the last couple of years. 2 years ago, Kent State was phenomenal with Ray J. Dennis. And Toledo, of course, poor Toledo, wins it every year and then loses in their conference tournament, never gets to go to the NCAA tournament, but they've been awesome. Kent State, Toledo with Ray J, and then all those good Kent State teams with Sincere Parker and the players that they've had. So Ohio, the last couple of years, they've had teams, but they just haven't been able to get over the hump of those three. And I think it's really, sort of watered them down in the market a little bit. All of that being said, I think you have a loaded Ohio team. They brought over a kid from Wright State that seems to be – oh, I'm sorry. That's another game. They brought over a kid from Iowa State that was really good at Wofford 2 years ago. Didn't quite fit into the to Iowa State, but he looks like he's going to be a great player for – I believe it's Pavletsky. Going to be a great player for Ohio. They still have Clayton. And then again, if Sharif Mitchell plays, I think this goes off like 11.5 or 12. I really like Ohio. I wouldn't be surprised if they put a scare into Memphis tonight. I think they could potentially win this game. But you're going to give me 2 touchdowns with the Bobcats. I got to take it. Ohio plus 14 is something I bet for tonight.
Way back in the day, my first regional, Providence was hosting, and they're hosting this year. If I'm not in Vegas, I will be at the first 2 rounds there in Providence in March. But this is way back. Ohio shocked the world and beat Georgetown, who I think was number 2 in that region. And that was the same year St. Mary's came in with the Sandman and won both weekend games there. So I'm very familiar with the Bobcats. I've been following them since then for a long time. So I definitely would take a look at Ohio plus the 14, 13.5, 13, whatever we can get there against Memphis. The second game you want to break down, LIU at Cal Baptist.
Yeah, so Jeff, I can't come on a Friday without like dipping into one of these small Northeastern conferences, and I got to be honest, this is a spot that I've had circled all week, and the books just gave me no chance here. So I think Cal Baptist absolutely hammers Long Island tonight. I couldn't. The books put out such an outrageous number on this that I feel like they know what I know about where Long Island is, and it's just. I'm not saying it doesn't get there, but it's like I was really hoping for like 12 or better, and the books opened at 16.5. So that's one of those things where I really try to hold myself to, not just because I love a matchup, love the handicap. I try not to like take a bad number, and I feel like at 16.5, I would be taking a bad number here. Now, I do see some Long Island money coming in, and so if they push it down for me, I'll be happy to bet this. I might even jump in at 14 if it gets there. I think it's down to 15 as we speak. But the reason that I want to go against LIU here so badly is I think they're going to be without two of their starters. And Jeff, if you watched on Monday, so I had a best bet on Monday on LIU plus 12.5. They were at Air Force. They won the game outright, but a couple big takeaways from that game. So first of all, as I expected, Bo Becker did not play in that game for Air Force. That's a huge loss for them. And that, in my opinion, was the reason LIU was able to win. But if you watch that game, you would have saw two things that I think are going to really hurt LIU here. Brent Davis went down with a knee injury. He actually came back in the game, tried to play, twisted it again, did not look good. I'll be really surprised if he's just good to go 3 days later with that type of injury. And then Shadrach Lasso, they're big. Took a pretty tough hit to the head, and I don't know if he got a concussion or if maybe they just made the assumption on the broadcast, but they don't mess around with that type of, if you have a concussion, you're probably not playing 3 days later. So, it's already a tough travel spot for LIU, going out to Air Force, having to play at altitude on Monday, and then being shipped all the way out to the West Coast, to play another bye game. This is a team that typically takes a bus places, right? Like, they're usually busing from Brooklyn out to Lemoyne, or this is just not a team that generally travels like this. And they already went down to Ole Miss to start the season. So, the life of a low major, you've got to cash those checks. You got to go play those bye games places. And that's what sort of LIU is doing right now. But on the Cal Baptist side, it lines up for me because I really, really am high on Cal Baptist this year. So, Jeff, this is a team that I've gotten more familiar with the WAC over the years. I've got a good buddy down at Tarleton State. I actually got to see Cal Baptist play when I was down in Texas at Tarleton State last year. And when I got to see them play, they didn't have Dominique Daniels, and they didn't have Dominique Daniels for a lot of the second half of the season last year, which not coincidentally derailed their season. He's by far their best player. He, I would say, is one of the top 3 players in the WAC that's not on Grand Canyon, right? Like, we know Grand Canyon is loaded, but if you take them out, I would say Dominique Daniels is one of the best, if not the best player on one of the other teams in the MAC. Here's the kid that comes from Wright State, A.J. Braun. I was already thinking ahead to talking this game. A.J. Braun comes to Cal Baptist. He looks like he's going to be a stud in this league. The entire rotation here is juniors and seniors, and they just got clipped at the buzzer, or not the buzzer, but they lost a game late earlier this week to Cal Riverside, which is one that, they probably felt like they should. I think they were like a 3-point favorite, but it was kind of a disappointing loss to lose that game the way they did. I think they had a look to win it and lost by 1. So I think you're going to get a very motivated Cal Baptist team here coming off the loss. And you might get an LIU team that just got their huge win over Air Force, arguably the biggest win in years for them, right? Like, going on the road, beating a Mountain West team as a double-digit underdog. The road trip's already a massive success for LIU. I don't think they're going to risk players that they don't have to. And without 2 starters, this one could get very ugly. So I think the books probably just, beat us to it in a sense, putting that huge number of 16.5 up. But if this continues to creep down 15, 14.5, 14, I don't know how you don't take the Lancers here. Cal Baptist University. I think they absolutely destroy LIU tonight.
I'm looking right now at Ken Palm. Ken Palm's got 79-66, So 145. If you don't respect the 16.5 and you're afraid of the back door, is a Cal Baptist team total in play? Is this going to be I know LIU back in the day, it used to just be up and down Greyhounds back and forth. Is this something that you could see Cal Baptist getting into the 80s?
Yeah, I think I'd prefer. So the way I think I'd kind of rather play it, Jeff, is I'd rather just play the first half, since like the line move and the line being big on the game side. Typically, the first half line is still like would be close to what it would be if I got the number that I wanted, knowing that I'm going to come over the top and bet the second half if the first half doesn't hit. I think that's the way I would prefer to play it. I don't have a good enough gauge on, like, LIU is a little bit more organized than they have been in years past. So they bring they must have some money in that program now, because they were able to bring to go get Chicago State's head coach and put him on the staff as an assistant. Of course, LIU's coach is Rod Strickland, 20-year NBA veteran. He's got his kid there, and who's a very good player. And so LIU is don't sleep on the Sharks. They are the Sharks now, not the Blackbirds, as you probably remember them as. They're the LIU Sharks, and don't sleep on them in conference play. They're one of the better teams in the NEC this year, but it's hard to overcome being without two starters. So to answer the question, I don't think that they're like totally unorganized, just like up and down and have no clue what's going on. I just think they're going to be a little undermanned here against a Cal Baptist team that's a lot better than I think they're getting credit for in the market, because they played so much of last season without Dominique Daniels. So I do think ultimately like 14 or 15 probably gets there. But if you want like an alternate way to play it, maybe play Cal Baptist first half, knowing that if you don't cash your first half ticket, you're going to make a bigger bet on the second half. At that point, you'll have the good number, right? Because if the first half doesn't hit, you're going to get the number in line with where we would want it. And then, hopefully it cashes for the game. But again, this could very well be a 25-point lead at half for Cal Baptist. Wouldn't be surprised if they smash every number here. It's that horrible of a spot for Long Island.
Are you going to any games over the weekend?
Of course I am, Jeff. I will be in Albany tomorrow. It is the Albany Cup, Siena U Albany. I'm a Siena alum. It is a huge deal for Albany, Capital Region basketball. Of course, Siena and U Albany are 8 miles apart. We play a rivalry game every year called the Albany Cup. But what's special about this year's edition, Jeff, is it's not downtown in MVP Arena. So Siena's home arena is actually a large building. It's like it's a 15,000 seat arena. We get NCAA tournament games there every couple of years. Last year, Caitlin Clark played both of her Sweet 16 Elite 8 games in that building. So it gets configured for 8,000 for Siena games. And that's typically Albany Cup, they open it up for the full configuration. You get 11, 12,000 people there. Albany complained. I'll give this to them, rightfully so. They wanted to be able to have a home game every couple of years that they could sell their season ticket packages and use for recruiting. And so I think now once every 4 years, this game will be played in their home venue, which is the much smaller but absolutely gorgeous and newly renovated Broadview Center on the campus of UAlbany. Why am I telling you that? Because it only holds 4,000 people. The game is already sold out. They're already selling standing room for that arena. So if you're sort of manipulating your home court numbers, right? Like Albany is going to get full marks for, the home court edge that they're going to have in this game. Their building's going to be completely sold out. I do know quite a few Siena people that have bought up those tickets, though, so maybe more of a 50-50 crowd. But it should be awesome. And it should be a competitive game. I haven't gotten a chance to make a number for it yet. I'll do it in a couple of hours. But my gut is telling me Albany is going to be getting a little bit more, going to be a little bit bigger of a favorite than I would expect them to be. They are getting two of their best players back that didn't play against Dartmouth on Wednesday. But they blew out Dartmouth, like just destroyed Dartmouth without two of their starters. I have a feeling, even though Siena has 3, it'll be really interesting because Siena is 3-0, and they've now won 3 games as an underdog. So they've 3 upset wins to start the season for Siena. So both teams really at this point are probably a little bit overvalued. It's going to be really interesting to see where the odds makers open that number because I don't even really know what they're going to do with it. I'm not sure I'll have a play in that game because of that, but it should be a great game. Looking forward to it.
Scroll has been going the whole time. Everyone knows to go follow Adam on X at Adam Trigger WT. But as we always wrap this up here, we give you the stage to tell everyone what you have at Wager Talk to offer.
Yeah, so far so good. 8-6 to start the college basketball season. Jeff, we did this show before the season, and I said November is about survival. There's so much crazy stuff in November with all of the moving parts in college basketball. It's not like it used to be. You're just trying to get to December ahead, in my opinion. And we've done that so far, up 5 units, I believe, coming into today. I've had one max 5% at Wager Talk. We call them 5% plays. It's the max designation we can give to a play. I've had one of those so far this year. It was Hampton on Tuesday night against Providence, which covered easily. They actually almost had a chance to win that game, which was amazing. 22.5-point underdog. My second one of those will go tonight. So if you're interested in that, that's over on my page at Wager Talk now. But I do have a pretty big card today. Probably going to end up being my big. Jeff, you mentioned the slate is awesome today. There's a ton of games. So this will be my biggest daily card of the season so far. But I did give you one of them on this show. Ohio plus 14 is something that I did bet. And Cal Baptist is something that I might bet if I get the number I want. Haven't locked that one in yet, but certainly stand by the handicap there. So, yeah, if you're interested in all the plays, they're over at Wager Talk. But I do post quite a few of them for free, and I'll always try to bring one when we do this spot on Fridays.
Adam, we can't thank you enough. We love our spot here every Friday with you at 11:30 or 11:35. Go enjoy the weekend, cash some tickets, enjoy yourself on Saturday, and we'll catch up next week.
Thanks for having me, as always, Jeff. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Elijah, quick commercial break, and we'll wrap it up. ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. Busy times here on Friday. I started the morning at 10:15 with Andrew McGinnis at McGinnis Picks at his YouTube station. We talked some NHL. We talked a little weekend stuff there. So head on over to YouTube at McGinnis Picks and you can rewatch that show. Then we come back, of course, at 11 o'clock. And the NCAA Insiders, Matt Grissom, Nick Hatcoat, talking some college football. And then we circle the wagons and bring Adam Trigger in to talk some college hoops. And again, his focal point, the locals, the East Coast. He knows more about those than I swear some of the head coaches and the coaching staffs there. Myself and Riley Magnuson will be back at 12:30. That's right, in a half hour. We're going to move the closing bell up. We're going to get you caught up in some Big Ten football, Big Ten basketball. We'll get you caught up in the big slate in Friday night's action as well. Shout out to Elijah Cox, the best in the business. We couldn't have done it without you. Everyone else, go grab some quick lunch. Be back here at 12:30. We'll see you soon.